Greetings, Game Cola faithful, and welcome to the Game Cola podcast. This is podcast number 166. And like cereal, we're tricks, not for... we are for kids, but not just kids. Tricks, the cereal. That's the rhyme I'm doing this time. Also, along with my terrible rhymes and terrible introductions, we have...
Hey, John's here, ready to talk about some video game movies.
And I'm your host and podcast commander, Joseph Martin, if I didn't say that.
Oh, you are? Oh, I thought you were Anna for a second.
John and I have both seen video game movies recently. In particular, we have the Super Mario Brothers movie, which was just recently announced.
Super Mario Brothers movie. The is important because it's the definitive Super Mario Brothers movie.
Yes, there have been others, but they don't count anymore. Shigeru Miyamoto would very much like you to believe that. I have seen the interviews. He is surprisingly open about how much he does not like the old movie.
He's like, what movie?
Like, not
what?
Directly, but you think in, like, interview, like, there's, like, interview speak where you're like, oh, you know, you kind of say neutral and you don't kind of, like, show your hand. But, like, he doesn't say, like, I hate the old movies, but, like, the way that he talks about the old movies is very obvious that he is not a fan.
He's just like, yeah, they're whatever. We gave him money. Don't look at me.
But yeah, it's been released, and not only that, but it's been doing pretty well. It's at over 700 million at the time of recording was the most recent number, but that number I'm sure will continue to change. That means it's done. It is done.
Holy money.
And I think, like, part of the reason I bring that up is because, you know, it's been more, it's had a higher gross so far than I think both Sonic movies combined, which is not to be a slight on them, but as much as to say that, like, this will be influential, right? Like, people will pay attention to this. This will have ramifications about what studios think is valuable about a video game movie and what would make a video game movie successful. And so I think if you care about video games, you care about video game movie adaptations, you will want to know about this movie even if you haven't watched it, because I think it's going to affect what we see in the video game adaptation landscape going forward.
Yeah, for real. Like, this is just... It's a very interesting time because it's like, some video game movies have had the reputation or the narrative of not being good. A lot of them made money, and a lot of them also have like cult followings. Like the first Mortal Kombat movie from 1995 is probably still high on my list for like ranking video game adaptations because it is just a fun movie, but it also made so much money. Like, that was the first, like, big success for a video game movie. Because then, what'd you have before that? The Street Fighter movie with Jean-Claude Van Damme? That didn't make a lot of money, but it still has a cult following. But so I guess it made a profit, like, over time through, like, home video sales and whatnot. And then, like, before that, there was, Double Dragon? The original Super Mario Brothers movie? It's a very interesting time because, like, and between like the 90s and early 2000s, video game movies have gone from somewhat successful to making profits, but not like good critical adaptation. And now it's just like, it's mixed to positive critical adaptation and just buttloads of money now. And because these big names are getting movies that people waited for so long. Because like Sonic only had like animated TV shows that were very wish-washy in terms of quality and views. And now we have like 2 solid Sonic movies making almost $500 million each. Mm-hmm. It's insane.
and in improving too. Like I don't remember the exact numbers, but I'm pretty sure Sonic 2 was had a larger revenue than Sonic 1, for example.
Yeah,
so like,
I haven't pulled up now. Sonic 1 had like 320 million, and then Sonic 2 had 405 million.
Right. So like, even if I'm saying like, you know, Mario has outpaced them combined, like I also think that like it is reasonable to say that the success of the Sonic movies is a reason why I don't think the Mario movie would have been a flop without the Sonic movies, but I think that it is engendered some trust into, hey, a modern video game movie adaptation can be good, from people who, like, I think with the first Sonic movie, there were a lot of people who were like, video game movies are always bad, or always like just barely at like cult following level of interest, so I'm not going to get too invested in it.
Even before Sonic movies, I think the reputation was starting, because I didn't think it didn't really start until the Detective Pikachu movie.
Yeah, that's a good example. But that one is also like, it's a weird space, right? Like, obviously Pokemon is huge, but like the detective, like it's not like the definitive Pokemon movie.
They waited until there was a Pokemon movie with an actual story to make a movie out of.
Yeah, well, it's funny because it's like Detective Pikachu was just like this weird little spin-off thing, and then that's the one they made a big movie out of. I think that is part of the transition into the space that we see now, where we have these, and I think we'll get into talking about the Mario movie itself. I just want to give some like context for why I think this is like worth having a pretty extended discussion about on the podcast. It's like we're moving into this realm of video game adaptations that I would call almost like hyper authentic, like very clearly focused on adapting as closely as possible.
Yeah, it's because
in a way that video game movies, I feel like before, and this is part of the reason I think the Mario movie does so well, is like, and gets such a positive response from audiences, is because there's a vibe that I get watching older video game movies where they're almost embarrassed about their source material. And they like make these changes that say like, I know this seems kind of silly, but actually we're doing this. Or like they'll have moments where the characters will be like, I can't think of any examples off the top of my head, but like things where it's like, isn't that weird? I guess that we're doing that and it's weird. And it's like, with these more recent adaptations, it's like, no, we're putting this in the movie because we think it's cool. We think people like it. Maybe we'll make some changes just to fit the medium better. But we're not making changes because we think the audience won't like the original source material.
Also, you have to think of the state of Hollywood, like at the time when like video games started, like getting video game adaptations. Because the first one was the Super Mario Brothers movie. This was it came out in the year 93. So you have Super Mario World out at the end. So there was only 4 games. And so basically the video game industry was still growing at that point, right? Like compared to what it is now, because like you could say it's like, 90s and early 80s were like peak video game height. I'm like, no, it's still technically starting out considering where they are now. But it's like, but Hollywood at that time in the 90s, it was just men in suits. It was it's like they were grown men, like looking at like a property or IP and looking at a name, just being like, people seem to like this Super Mario Brothers. It's like, we can make some money.
That's a great Paul Francis impression, John.
We love you, Paul. But yeah, it's like they didn't see it as like an IP. They just saw their kids playing it and be like, I can, and like, this is very popular with kids. Kids movies are making a lot of money right now because this was during the time of the Disney Renaissance. Like kids movies were making buttloads of money. So it's like kids property, money, making money right now. Let's make a movie. And I don't know why they didn't want to make it animated at the time, but still.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. It's like, Disney kid movies are doing so well, so we're going to make this live action movie with just real big adult guys just doing adult things in dark and gritty New York City. Like,
actually, let me see how much the original Mario movie made, because like even then, but kids are kids. All you have to say was Super Mario Brothers movie, and they'd be like sold immediately. I just saw the ads and like Nintendo Power and whatnot. They would get instantly hyped, even though it still looked nothing like Mario. I just clicked on the wrong Wikipedia page for the wrong movie. Okay, hang on. Plot twist: they deleted the Wikipedia page of the original Super Mario Brothers movie.
They do. Nintendo does not want you to know that it exists.
I have to type in 1993, don't I? Yes, I do. Hello. There you are, Bob Hoskins. Okay, yeah, that was a big flop. Okay, so on a budget of... Okay, so that's actually a modest budget for the time, $48 million for the 90s. So that was pretty big budget for the time, but it made 38 or almost $39 million. So it was a big flop. Big flop. So while some kids were enamored by the idea of a Super Mario Brothers movie, they didn't buy it fully, and they definitely didn't go back to see it again.
Yeah, sure. I think a parent would show up to that and be like, "This does not seem like it's a movie for children." Another thing that's different about modern times, though, is that we have more people who have like grown up with the IP.
Yes,
right?
Yes,
like,
that was the point I was trying to make before I went on my tangent on Wikipedia. But
right,
but the
right,
yeah, because like if you look at the producers, like at Illumination, the animation company that made the movie, it's like they're a lot younger than you would think. It's like they're like 30s right now. It's like, oh, these people definitely played like Mario as kids. They definitely had NESs. They definitely had Super NES. They probably have Switches right now. It's
so
yeah, it's insane.
So yeah,
it's just the amount of love, care, and attention to detail in these products has definitely grown over time. Even like something as mediocre as the Uncharted movie, it still has like some beats and musical cues. It still feels like some like men in suits are like, make money, give us money. They still have like control over like the overall like creative input that goes into the movie, but you can tell there are inklings of some creativity, definitely in like the set design and
bleed
some editing
through the cracks.
It's like we got to have some fun with this, and there definitely is, but it's like. It's like Men in Suits still say you got to cast Tom Holland, you got to cast Mark Wahlberg, you got to cast. Yeah, it's like,
yeah. I think we've given enough context for why the Super Mario Brothers movie is important, just beyond being a video game movie about the man, the myth, the legend, Mario, Jumpman Mario. John, what did you think? Like
the movie itself,
one line, short, Super Mario Brothers movie. What's your one line takeaway?
Cute.
Not one word takeaway, like a sentence.
Very well crafted, fun time at the movies.
Okay, yeah, I liked it. I think it had a lot of strong points that it has done better and maybe been one of the only movies to really do it the way that it has done it. With a few notable weaknesses that are understandable. And keep it from being like, oh man, what a great movie, but like not so much that it would completely like it would really ruin your experience. They're kind of things where you're like, you think about them after watching the movie and you're like, yeah, that was kind of weird, or that was kind of weak, but it's not. But while you're watching the movie, you're like, even if you notice it, you're kind of like, well, I'm still having a good time, but yeah, this is kind of silly. We could get more into that. I don't know, what part of the movie do you want to talk about first? I feel like there's no point in I'll start with this. There's no point in like trying to summarize the movie because there's not like it's moving from action set piece to action set piece basically. So we're talking about a part of the movie.
That's a good jumping off point, because when you say that structure, it's like, this movie barely has structure or like
it's
let's just talk about like the main criticism that's like going around about the movie. That makes sense. And then we'll get to the positive
probably
stuff.
The thing that stands out the most is that like I think you'll hear people say that it doesn't have a plot, and like I remember hearing that and be like, what does that mean? Like, how does a movie not have a plot? And what I think people mean is that there isn't like, and I think what you said makes a lot more sense. It doesn't have a lot of structure. It is a very yes and makes it sound bad. It's a very and then movie, right? Mario goes to, Mario falls down a pipe, and then he meets Toad, and then he gets to the castle, and then he meets the princess, and then they do an obstacle
and then
course.
Brooklyn gets flooded. Wait, why did that happen? What? Excuse me?
Right. There's not a lot of and therefore or and buts, which I think that's like a classic, like, if you want to break down the pacing of your scene to scene in a way that's like really engaging, there needs to be like a consequence or a complication. and there's not a lot of consequences, and there's a few complications, but scene to scene, they're not really there. It's more like act transition to act transition.
Yeah.
There's a complication.
Yeah. It's the most prevalent of this is like whenever it cuts back to, actually, I'm going to compare something you wouldn't even think about of doing this better. So you're watching Power Rangers, for example. No, here, hang on.
I'm with you so far.
Okay, so it's like you have the action scenes, the scenes with their humans, all the comedy and whatnot, the comic relief, and then you always have those scenes where it cuts back to the main villains in their evil lair, like scheming what to do about those pesky Power Rangers. It's like, and they're basically spying on the heroes this whole time. It's like, oh, Jason's doing this, so I'm gonna send down this henchman to deal with him there. That doesn't happen in the Mario movie. What happens is whenever it just cuts back to Bowser, he's informed of what Mario is doing, and he does nothing about it. It just cuts back until the very end.
Until where it's like, all right, it's time to start the third act.
Yeah.
Let's set, like, basically, Bowser comes in to end the second act, but most of the second act, Bowser doesn't really do anything.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like holding around, basically getting from scenes with Bowser that clearly they wanted to show, but there's not necessarily any reason for them other than to like break up the Mario sections a little bit and to hammer home some characterization, but like there's no reason to say like why this scene had to happen now instead of somewhere else, aside from the line that is updated about Mario is relevant to whatever just happened.
Yeah.
But like it's basically, it just hammers home Bowser is ready to go to the Mushroom Kingdom and he wants to try to marry Princess Peach, and if he can't do that, he'll destroy the kingdom.
It's like, cool,
and like,
established.
We just iterate on that over and over again throughout the second act. As Mario just kind of goes from like, here's the stuff that references Super Mario Brothers. Here's the stuff that represents Donkey Kong Country. Here's the stuff that represents Mario Kart. And it's like, once we get through those three things in the second act, then it's like, all right, now we can actually wrap this story.
Yeah. Yeah, basically. Yeah, there's like every time it cuts back to Bowser, you're just like, why did we cut back here? He's just like talking about Peach again for the third time. And while granted, every scene with Jack Black as Bowser is freaking hilarious. On its own, I was busting a gut. It's like, yeah, I'm having fun, but it still doesn't like help the movie though as a scene. It just means, oh, it's a funny scene, and you just didn't know where else to put it.
It's a less than the sum of its parts sort of thing, where it's like it's a good piece by itself, but put together, it doesn't really enhance the scene. And in fact, because it doesn't enhance it. I don't know if you'd say it's like neutral or negative, because it's not. It feels like it's only negative in the sense of the opportunity it costs to do something better. I feel like is the way to present it. I would say my favorite. I really liked Luigi in the movie. I feel like Luigi got a lot of the best lines.
Yes.
Like some of my favorites were like where Mario says like, you can't go around being scared all the time, and Luigi says, you'd be surprised. And then the bit where he's talking with Bowser that is in the trailer, where it's like you think I know every single village mustached man with a outfit that's color-coded outfit with the first letter of his name on his hat? Because I don't know that. Like that was a.
He's not lying.
Reason to put in the trailer.
He's not lying. He doesn't know about Wario yet.
He doesn't. Yeah, I think maybe now we can go on to like the characterization, the characters, the performances. Again, and I've watched some reviews after watching the movie. I try to do that just to sort of like not let reviews color my opinion too much, but then also to get a sense of what other people are thinking. It seems like, the thing I hear over and over again, Bowser and Luigi, I think were people's favorite performances. Chris Pratt got a lot of grief, I think, even from
before
me
the movie
and
came
us.
Out, before the movie came out, I was like, really? And then, like, in the movie itself, I was fine with him. I was perfectly fine.
Yeah, it was, yeah. I do think there was still some I would even say, like, the voice cast is... I think with the Mario movie, right, like there's a lot of cool stuff. Like, you know, when we talk about the Super Mario section, the Donkey Kong section, and the Mario Kart section, like there's a lot of cool attention to detail, a lot of that one Leonardo DiCaprio meme where he's like pointing at the TV, you know, that there's a lot of that where you're like, oh yeah, that thing. Oh yeah, that thing. I know that thing. I'm pointing. You can't see it, but I hope the energy of me pointing comes across in the audio.
And all that
like
is just all that's cool. It's all like small, cool details. That's like great animation design, and great set design. Because
it looks
even
beautiful.
Believe it or not,
It's
even
never...
in animated movies, they have to have set designers be like what to put where and whatnot. It's very complicated, but yeah.
And even though like you talk about like, oh, there's not a plot, a lot of time when you hear about a movie, they're like, oh, it doesn't really have a plot or nothing really happens. It's like, oh, so the movie's boring. It's not boring. Like, practically speaking, stuff is happening. Mario is driving around on a cart, or he's being surrounded by a bunch of monkeys.
It's just a bunch of stuff that has nothing to do with each other.
Yeah, they're not just like sitting there talking and like nothing is happening. It's just that none of the stuff that's happening clearly directly follows from what was happening before it. But you're never like bored. Yeah. Like whatever is happening currently is always entertaining. Yeah. It's just like you try to think about it all together. You're like, I don't quite like. I guess I get that, you know, we have to have a Mario Kart part, so here we're at the Mario Kart part. But like, why does it make sense that you know? Oh, we're gonna go back to the Mushroom Kingdom with all the monkeys, so let's all build a bunch of carts in a situation that emulates how it's done in Mario Kart Wii, where you pick the cart parts, and then drive there on the space road, and it's like, that doesn't make any sense, but I know about Mario Kart, so I'm willing to buy it. That's sort of the vibe that you get.
What I don't buy is why is Rainbow Road so close to Donkey Kong Country? It's like with the geography of this place makes no sense.
I was a little upset that they didn't have the giant cannon from DK Mountain. That was kind of what I was hoping for when we saw that the cars were going to be part of the Donkey Kong Country world. But so the three weakest parts of the movie, I feel like, are also the parts where there wasn't a solid foundation within the video game version of the brand to base those elements on.
Yeah. Basically.
So that's emotional stakes, right? And this is kind of like plot, but like there's no like emotional core of Mario games that you can like latch onto and make a movie out. So you kind of have to create it out of whole cloth. And they try to hit a couple of things, like Mario feels like he's a failure to his dad. And by the way, Mario has a dad in this movie.
Played by Charles Martinet.
Yeah, which is fun. Which I did not recognize. You know, he has an more obvious cameo at the beginning of the movie, and so then you stop like thinking about it because you're like, oh yeah, there's the Charles Martinet bit, and it's like, oh yeah, no, he's just doing a regular voice acting role here. And then
he also did like I could have sworn because I know. He's one of those voice actors that literally just changes his voice like on a dime. It's like impressive how well he can change his voice. So yeah. I'm fairly certain I heard him like do other like small like voice roles like throughout the movie, like in the background. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Because a lot of voice actors do that for animated movies. Like like say like D. Bradley Baker, who does like so much like background voices for like henchmen or whatnot in like DC animated movies or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to go back to the emotional stakes bit, like Luigi, you know, is like, oh, he's scared. But like the kind of thing is like Luigi is scared at the beginning of the movie in the first act. And then in the third act, he does something brave. And it's like, well, there's not really anything that happened in between those two events that like really leads from one to the other. But like, okay, you resolved the arc, I guess. There's a beginning and an end and not much of a middle. But like, so...
I will say it was a good idea to like add to like some of an emotional core to the movie to have the Luigi be the one to be kidnapped instead of Peach, because it's like, why if Mario just got to the Mushroom Kingdom and Peach got kidnapped, it's like, why would he care?
Right.
It's like,
so I do think it kind of speaks.
Heck, even like during the movie though, it's like now that I think about it, it's like he just wanted to save Luigi the whole time. It's like I bet if he got Luigi, I'm surprised there wasn't a point in the movie where he saved Luigi. He saved Luigi. He's like, all right, I'm going home. Bye.
Right. I thought that was going to be like the third act betrayal sort of thing where like, because they set it up at the beginning. They're like, Mario's dad is like, and the worst thing is you brought your brother into your failing plumbing business and you're bringing your brother down with you. And like that is like the thing that makes Mario stand up and leave the spaghetti table.
I like how it's the
Which is a
spaghetti table, not the dinner table.
Yeah, the spaghetti table. And I thought that was going to be the thing where he like, I got Luigi into this mess because it was his like heroics trying to save Brooklyn in the sewers that got Luigi sent to the Mushroom Kingdom, and he followed, or sent to the Mario universe. That it wouldn't be called the Mario universe because he wasn't there yet. But I thought it was going to be, you save Luigi, Princess Peach is like, hey, aren't you going to help us? And he's like, no, I've got my brother into too much trouble. I'm gonna leave now. And then Luigi would have a moment where he says like, oh, my bravery comes from you. I don't think of it as you getting us into trouble. I think that we're a team that helps people. And then they go back and they save the day. Yay. That's what I thought was going to happen. As soon as it was clear that Luigi was going to be kidnapped, I thought that was going to happen. Instead, Luigi just doesn't do anything. Like from the second act, there's a lot of people who don't do anything in the second act of this movie.
Yeah. Bowser doesn't
Luigi
do
is
crap.
one of them. Bowser is one of
them.
them. I think it speaks to the fact that like
Toad is
the
just
damsel
there.
in distress trope. Yeah, Toad also, like, you're worried about Toad being an annoying sidekick. I don't think he doesn't have that many lines.
Yeah,
he's not in the movie very much. He's like physically there. Yeah, but he doesn't do a whole lot. He doesn't have a chance to be annoying. But the damsel in distress trope is not just like, oh, it's bad because it's sexist, though that is a fair thing to say. It's also, it makes a character boring if they're acting as a damsel in distress or filling that trope. Like you would not call Luigi a damsel, but like it's because a person in a cage is just not that's not anything interesting for them to do. And it kind of speaks to like the fact that it's kind of disappointing that Luigi doesn't get to do more. Because I think, when Luigi was doing stuff, he was, I think, my favorite character in the movie. Yeah. Okay. We're like jumping into recursive topics and then bouncing back out of them. I hope I hope the audience is able to follow. So that is the first thing that the Mario movie, right? There's no basis in the game, so it kind of has to be created out of whole cloth. Yeah. The other thing is certain musical elements, right? There's a few references. There's not references. There's just parts of the movie where they play, pop songs, which is just like, to a certain extent, it's like, that's a thing that you do.
That's the thing I was talking about before. That is the one like men in suit like thing that in this movie. And which it makes sense. They're like mostly 80s songs. It's an 80s property. It's like, oh, we got to have 80s songs in there. I'm like, I can hear, I can see like I can see like the directors and the editors being like, all right, fine.
I think part of it too is that it filled the gap in certain sections where there wasn't a very clear piece of Mario music to reference for a particular scene. And so instead of like trying to figure out, oh, how can we make this something that conveys what's happening in this scene with what goes along with, like, what can we reference instead of just creating a whole new track? And maybe they couldn't really figure it out and like, all right, this is where we'll put our 80s tracks.
Plus, it's like there was one scene in particular where I was like, okay, this one kind of makes sense. It's when they're going through the obstacle course. And Peach nails it, and it's like Mario music the whole time when she goes through it. And then when Mario does it, it's like it's going to be a training montage. So you think there'd be like a cool like Mario score for the montage. It's like a nice little remix, like a punch out mixed with Mario music kind of thing. And then it plays like Holding Out for a Hero. I was like, okay. It's like, I guess that kind of makes sense because it's like we just saw Peach go through the entire course by herself. So it's like now Mario's going to do it like over and over again. So I guess it kind of makes sense to like divide the two obstacle course scenes like more audibly.
I think it would work. It would work better if the movie Shrek 2 did not already exist.
That was diegetic though.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like even still, like just the association. Like you're not gonna. I think no one should try to put that song in a movie. In an animated
that's funny
movie
you mentioned
anymore.
That because you and my friend of mine. Are like the only two people I know that have brought up like that song being in Shrek 2 before. So I think you both are just so like enamored with that movie. It's like no other movie can have that song ever again. It's like that's a you problem.
I mean, to a certain extent, I think about it because the Shrek movies were sort of like, at least in the animation space, were like the first movies to sort of take this idea of like, let's put pop songs in these animated movies. But like at that point, like, and specifically within this space, like I'm sure there could be someone out there, well, actually, these movies put songs, and maybe some of them were animated, but like Shrek was trying to not be Disney. It was trying to be like the anti-Disney movie, and the beautiful orchestral could be in a musical theater song score of Disney movies was very, like, the idea was to contrast against that with modern-ish, I don't know how modern they were, but like modern in the sense that like people would be listening to it nowadays, even if it didn't come out at the time that Shrek came out. And like it works there, but like like you said, like it kind of works in the contrast of like Princess Peach has Mario sounds when she does it. Mario's from the quote unquote real world, so he has a real world musical track play when he tries to do something. Like it kind of works, but at the same time, it's just a little jarring, and it feels like they're just doing it.
Yeah. Oh,
the other
definitely.
thing that's kind of like that is, you know, like and everyone's talked about this, the voice cast. People do their best. Like I
it's like they're not gonna go into a movie and be like, I'm gonna wreck shit up.
Yeah,
I'm gonna mess up so bad.
I don't remember what I've said about Chris Pratt. I'm sure I sort of jumped on the train there. Maybe I was a little bit too mean to him. I feel like my take was he was not doing a fantastic job of being convincing that he was invested, even though I'm pretty sure he was. Like when he's talked about playing Mario before, and I don't know, he really made it. I believe Chris Pratt has played Mario games, but like he really made it sound like he hadn't.
It's just like a delivery thing. It's like that. It's like if you've ever been like interviewed or like answered questions to like a crowd or whatnot.
Yeah.
It's just like that.
It wasn't even a crowd though. It was to his computer. I think that was part of it too. Like I think they just said like, oh hey, say some things about the Mario movie, and like the context. Like I think it was a marketing issue.
Yeah, it's just like
same with the trailers.
It's like you got to. It's like you got to have a list. It's like you got to see. It's like it was probably like the first time he was talking about like playing a Mario game in a long time, and he probably like hasn't played one in a while, so he was just like trying to remember. It's like that kind of thing.
I would say just even in general, like even with some of the standout cast, like Jack Black. Jack Black did a great job, but even sometimes with Jack Black, there were times where I felt like the voice acting element of the production was just not being given the same attention that the other parts of the production were being given. Mm-hmm. Not just the casting, but like the whole thing. Because like Chris Pratt kind of jumps in between like regular voice, Italian-ish, Brooklyn-ish. It kind of jumps around, and there's that to me speaks that there wasn't necessarily like there wasn't someone, you know, from Nintendo really like in there saying like, no, this is the portrayal of Mario we want, right? Because there's not like English voice acting has not been a very high priority of Japanese-based video game companies for quite some time. Quite famously. I'm a fan of the video game series Mega Man. I'm intimately familiar with this.
Here's the production explanation, I think, for the complaint you're talking about, is because they actually weren't. A lot of animated movies, like when they do voice acting sessions for like 3 hours or whatnot, like most of the characters that like have scenes together are in the same room working off each other, and they have directors doing that.
That was my gut, but I also felt like I wasn't knowledgeable enough to make that claim. But if you also feel that way, then I feel like, it definitely feels like a movie where all the individual voice actors were not in the same room.
That's because
obviously we could be proved.
Can you guess?
Not, or you already do you know that they didn't?
Yes, because in an interview with Jack Black and another one with Anna Taylor-Joy, they did all their lines and recordings via Zoom. It's like they they did like all. And the directors were like giving them directions like over Zoom, so it's like a lot of stuff can be like lost in translation during that, especially when like if Miyamoto's like talking to the producers, be like, oh no, I want this or like want that. Plus, Miyamoto's probably looking at the Japanese cast most of the time most of the time. So it's like it's probably two different things there.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't know. There again. There's like you've got translations issue if they're doing everything in Zoom. Were they doing it in Zoom at the same time, or were they doing it like completely separately?
I believe it was individually.
Okay, so like yeah, like that just changes the energy, and I think it makes sense that like it's not like a oh man I can't believe da 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 da. It's just like that is a factor that affects the quality of the movie. I think you can maybe not you can tell so much as it is apparent that there's something going on with the whole system of the voice casting. And again, I think it was just like that wasn't a part that was as important as like getting visual representation down and hitting the certain action set pieces and having the certain characters. Like I think that was treated with a lot more focus and intention than stuff like the voice cast and, you know, music and plot, right?
Yeah.
Like, and again, that's because there's not like a strong foundational basis in the brand to reference for that sort of thing. So it's like there's not something that you're going to quote unquote get wrong because there's not an original.
Yeah, it's a byproduct of going from like a franchise that has like little to no dialogue and is all like visual stuff and it's just visual fun, and then then to a 90-minute movie where it's like, oh, we have to have the characters like communicating the whole time. It's like, well, it would have been awesome to have a Mario movie where it was mostly visual actions, where the script didn't have like a single line of dialogue for like 3 pages or something.
That would have been a take. That would have been an artistic take to
and
do.
It's been done. It's been done before. I'm just saying, it's been done successfully.
Maybe not with Mario specifically, but
definitely not with Illumination, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because
and I think this is interesting too because it's kind of like a big break for Illumination. No. Yeah.
I just realized they made the Minions movies, which is all just visual gags.
But yeah, this is kind of like a big break for the Illumination, not just because like they've kind of had Despicable Me and they've had some successes, but
dude, the first Minions movie made $1 billion.
Yeah, no, like it's not in terms of success, but like watching some interviews, like I think there's a certain level of engagement that they have gotten from working with a brand like Mario that has brought a different kind of attention to them than it's expanded the demographic, if that makes sense,
yes.
Right?
Yes, that makes sense.
And I think that will give them more flexibility in expanding beyond things that are in sort of the scope of Despicable Me, Minions, Sing, I think is also them.
Yes.
The Secret Life of Pets, right? Like those are sort of their things.
All movies that barely have plots, by the way.
But it's like the kind of like that's targeting a certain audience and it's doing really well targeting that certain audience. But if they want to grow, which every company wants to do, then they need to, you know, get different kinds of projects. And I think this is one of those different kinds of projects that they can get. And, you know, if they make more Mario movies, that's obviously going to be great for them. If they make more Nintendo movies with Illumination, I don't know to what extent they would have like flexibility because what I think Illumination and DreamWorks are owned by, like, if you go up the chain far enough, they have a shared parent somewhere in there with Universal.
Yeah, no, they're owned. They're straight up owned by Universal, which is in tandem is owned by Comcast.
I've looked into this at one point. It's like it's so much like holding companies and like slight name rebrands and the arrows in the graph that point to whichever one thing are like they keep changing slightly, so it gets a little confusing. But like I don't know if that actually means that there will be like a flexibility of like, oh, maybe this Nintendo property would be better with DreamWorks, or like Illumination's making one while DreamWorks is making another, if DreamWorks was even interested in something like that. Like I don't know the space for stuff like that. Some of it will depend on, you know, what we sort of get as like a final number for the Mario movie. I get the feeling that they want to do more. Also, another thing though is that watching this movie, it definitely feels like there's an energy of we may never get to make another Mario movie like this again.
Yes.
So we're going to put everything in this that we want to be in a Mario movie.
If we don't make $2 billion, we're never making another Mario movie again. So might as well go all out.
And it makes sense, right? Because that original live action Mario movie in 1993 was a flop, right?
Yes.
And then that kind of just killed Nintendo movies until now, basically.
Yeah, they just have animated projects since then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's now that has happened, I feel like any other movies that are sort of made in this collaborative Nintendo Illumination or Nintendo collaborating with someone else paradigm, or TV shows if Nintendo branches out into that, I think there'll be a lot less of it'll be so much less cluttered because they will have the breathing room to say, okay, we don't need to get every single idea that we have in here. So if there's a Luigi movie, it can really just have the space to be a movie about Luigi and not a movie about Luigi and Daisy and Rosalina and
Year Luigi come back? Year Luigi come back?
Yeah, Year of Luigi. I mean, they could make the Super Luigi
Paulina was in the
Brothers
movie.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying cluttering it with as much focus on all the different elements as Super Mario, Donkey Kong, and Mario Kart got, right? I'm saying a Luigi movie, or even a Legend of Zelda movie, which to me that feels like if you were going to branch out beyond Mario, that would be the next place to go. I feel like Legend of Zelda would lead itself a lot better to a narrative environment. Obviously, and also
it's also very some of it can be very light on plot.
Right, but you can also much more easily just manufacture, because the whole thing about Zelda, right, is there's a reincarnated hero every single time.
Yeah.
So so many of the games, it's not, you don't have a Spider-Man problem where every single first Spider-Man movie for a long time had to tell the exact same origin story because we're a new kind of Spider-Man movie, so we got to do the origin story. With Zelda, you would have to do an origin story, but every Zelda game
would have a
lot of Zelda games already go through the origin story, so it wouldn't feel as out of place. And also, I think it's just the second most popular, publicly popular. I don't know. You talk about game sales, maybe that's different, but in terms of which video game series people know about, right? So many people played Breath of the Wild, for example. And even lots of people who are they own maybe 5 Nintendo games. I knew a lot of people who were they own 5 Wii games or GameCube games, and it was Twilight Princess was one of them, or Skyward Sword was one of them, and then you have Mario Kart and stuff
are you
that.
Saying
so I think it could work.
Are you saying they're going to make a Wii Sports movie next?
It would be interesting.
Check the couch cushions.
To try.
Check the couch cushions. I'm sure there's 3 copies in there.
I do really hope, and we can kind of, is there anything else you wanted to say about the Mario movie before we kind of move on?
I mean, I thought you were going to go on a tangent on where they're going to go after this, Nintendo.
Yeah. But if we start that process, I think we're putting an end to, we're talking about the Mario movie,
right.
as a review. So if there's anything else you wanted to say about it,
I guess some quick points that don't need further explanation. I just want to say it's Peach had the worst lines in the entire movie. Because
I think the performance was fine.
The performance was fine.
Right.
It was just the lines that killed it, because most of her lines was exposition. It was a lot of exposition, and
because there was so much action, she had very few there were a couple conversational moments, and then but people don't really talk to each other in this movie, except really oh no, don't. Look out.
They really don't. Bowser's song is amazing. The Peach's song.
Okay.
No further explanation is needed there. What else? The song choice thing. There was one song choice I thought was criminally horrible, where they could have just had an amazing video game score. Was when they went to Donkey Kong Country. It's and it played freaking Take On Me. It's that song's been in 30,000 movies. And it's dang. It's you couldn't give me some kind of Grant Kirkhope score from Rare or something. They had the DK rap, which was awesome. But still kind of scummy they didn't credit Grant Kirkhope, but I'm sure that
Yeah.
was like a contractual like company thing. It's like, oh, we can't do that because you work
Yeah,
for
I mean,
Rare,
I
which is owned by
thought it was,
Microsoft. It's like I'm sure it's like some kind
and
of
like,
thing.
yeah, the credits are weird. I went down a rabbit hole when the Metroid, what is it? What's the
Oh, Metroid Prime
What's
remastered.
Metroid Prime? I was like Metroid Fusion, Metroid. I was going through like all the different which subtitle is it? Which bonus? Yeah, Metroid Prime remakes where like there was a lot of talk about credit there, and like there's a deep dive. And it's like not there's like two broad categories of inconsistent standards between like American and Japanese like credits. Like they're inconsistent within themselves, and then also like in the even the broad strokes are inconsistent across, and so it leads to a lot of drama and misunderstanding. I'm not saying that like, oh, so it's actually okay that they didn't credit him. I think they should have credited him, but like it's just like I don't think it was a personal slight. I don't think they made a personal decision not to credit him. I think it was just like the credits are a mess. There's no industry standard, and everybody disagrees, and it's all weird nepotism, networking. Oh, I like this person, or oh, I think you like this person because you put their name before mine. Like it's a mess. So I wouldn't. It's not good, but I also wouldn't read too much into it.
Fun fact. Fun fact. That's not really related to the Mario movie, but to avoid like some kind of that credits like politics is, I guess, what the term is. Like some actors just like have it in their contract to be like credited last, like Chris Pratt does sometimes, or Samuel L. Jackson definitely does. Because like whenever you'll see a poster, it'll be like this many people with Samuel L. Jackson, who has like a really big part in the movie, like more than some of the other people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, that's even like a completely. This isn't Mario or video game movie related, but I think it's interesting. It's like there's a whole different politics about like where people's names are on movie posters.
Yeah.
Like it's so like it's a system that could only exist because it's a bunch of actors trying to like it's like no, I feel like no other like, you know, credit, like I've worked on research papers before, and there can be a little bit of drama with like, oh, who gets credited on the research paper for whatever, but like not nearly to the same amount.
Yeah.
Like it's yeah. But yeah, I think where Nintendo is going to go next, where the industry is going to go next, I think is interesting to talk about, speculate, even if it's just like, you know, we come back in 10 years, listen to this episode of the podcast and see how wrong we were. I do think the easiest thing to say is that I'm pretty sure Nintendo, like what, there's an end credits sequence or an end credits teaser that doesn't like tease anything specific beyond like we're probably gonna make another Mario-ish movie again. Like we want to, at least we want to leave that door open. I think based on the success we've just seen so far, at this point they are going to either start working or have started working on whatever they're going to do next. And it would take, you know, some big industry shakeup, change, or something out of the ordinary to stop that from happening. Like, oh, there's production issues or some like creative disagreements, like something like that would have to happen.
Yeah.
And it could, and like that, but that could happen at any point. I don't know, you know, I don't know to what extent there's different, like with media in general, there's like two sort of ways where it can go about, where like, you know, I think TV shows are an easier example, where it's like sometimes season 2 is greenlit before season 1 even airs, for example, right? So like sometimes the second movie starts like strong production before the first movie comes out. And that means that the next one can come out in like, you know, a year or two, depending on, you know, the resources that you have or stuff like that.
Yeah, it all depends on confidence on like if Mario was going to make money or not.
So
because like, well, like people like us, it's like, oh, it's like, or like film people like me, oh, it's Illumination, it's Mario. Mario is huge right now. There's no way that's not going to make money. There's still some men in suits out there that are like, probably not. We don't know.
And even like, I would say not unwarranted anxiety from the side of Nintendo, right? Like Nintendo is not a movie production company. So like they may just say like, we need to see, like even if it's successful, we need to see if it's going to be successful in the way we want it to be successful, right? Mm-hmm. Does it lead to a bunch of people buying a bunch of new Mario games, for example? Like that could be a factor in it. Again, like even just the fact that the movie itself did well, I feel like would be enough for them to say it's worth trying again.
I will
But
say that has
at what
happened.
point?
Oh, because I've gone into like Best Buy like a few times the past couple months, and without fail, I'm just in the Switch section, and there's always like a parent that they're like, "Which of these Mario games is like the one I played?" I'm like, "You mean like a? You go from left to right?" And they're like, "Yeah, that one." I'm like, "New Super Mario Brothers U, right there. That's the one. That's the one you want."
I mean, there was in the movie theater I went to, there was just a regular like ad. It's like, here's 4 Mario games you could buy. It's like four Mario games you could buy after you watch this movie. Like that's clearly an angle that they're going for, which like it makes sense. I wouldn't say that the movie feels like an extended advertisement. It definitely is. Like that is a function that it serves, but it doesn't necessarily feel like I'm watching a commercial.
Yeah, no.
If that makes sense.
It doesn't. It doesn't feel like a commercial. It feels like a celebration.
Yeah.
A plotless celebration, but a celebration.
But okay, so I think I've made what I think. I think like another Mario movie, or like I mean, you could call it the Super Mario Brothers 2 movie 2, or Super Mario Brothers 2 movie, or something like that.
I think they're gonna drop and movie from the title. Personally,
Super Mario 2 movie.
I think they're just gonna call it flat out Super Mario Brothers 2.
I think, but I think there's also room for fun spin-offs like the Super Luigi movie or something like that. Or if they wanted to branch out to other franchises, Zelda would be first, I would think.
I will say this: Metroid would probably be the best, like in terms of like adapting a plot to a movie. It'll be best. It would be like the best one to not start with or like go to next, but it'll be like I think it'll be like the easiest to like translate over because it has a plot. It has a cool setting. It's like you have Alien, Metroid. It's like just make it an Alien movie. Make it a PG-13 Alien movie. That'd be awesome.
I think a Metroid adaptation would be one of the best movies they could make. I think it would also be a movie that probably would not sell very well.
Oh, definitely not. But I'm just saying, if we're gonna go all crazy, it's like we're having like what that crappy like Mortal Kombat movie from like a few years ago is getting a sequel right now, and it's like
I feel like it's one of the least marketable movies that exist. The movie ideas that exist.
Well, that's why why you don't market it as a Metroid movie. You market it as an Alien movie. Like it just happens to have the word Metroid on it. It's like I'm like in the style of an Alien movie. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I think it would be a good movie. I don't know how you would market it so that you would get the kind of people who would enjoy it to watch it.
Action horror. I feel like horror. Let's go. Horror's big right now.
John, how many times have parents walked into video game stores and bought a video game with a giant letter M on it and been like, I can't believe that you let my child play this video game that I bought for them? Do you they say, oh, it's a Nintendo movie. I don't care that it's rated PG-13. I'm going to bring my 7-year-old to it. What? My 7-year-old was scared of all of the spooky alien horror references. Nintendo, how could you do this to me?
And then I'll be like, do you have any idea how many Disney anime movies had creepy imagery in them? I'll be like, sit down. Sit down. Studios don't care.
I understand that, John. It wasn't the whole movie. It was not the whole movie. It's a little different. But okay, so Sonic, I think this also means that Sonic is also I would assume they were going to make a third Sonic movie, but this just makes it more.
Not only is Sonic 3 in the works right now, it's been in the works. There's a Knuckles spin-off show going to Paramount Plus,
right?
Which is also just in the works.
I think the space is not it's not overcrowded like you could argue the superhero movie space is, right? So I think any success that Mario has translates into more success for Sonic at this point, right? The Sonic franchise. I think any sort of attention to video game adaptations doing well benefits all parties. They're not in competition with each other yet.
And then you're gonna have the people asking for the Olympic Games spinoff crossover.
I will be asking for the Olympics Games spin-off crossover. I want to see Mario and Sonic together on the big screen. Will it happen? No, it won't. Not even as a joke.
Though. Do you think, which I kind of don't want to happen, but I know it's probably if they keep making $1 billion like this one, it's probably will happen. Do you want a Super Smash Brothers Avengers crossover between them?
I do. I think it will be bad.
Yes.
But I do want it. That's where I'm at right now. I don't think there's a great way that you could do it. It would depend. Again, part of it would depend on. I mean, how many people? Yeah, like how many? Like, what's the litmus test? Like, how many groups do you have to get together before that makes sense? Right? Like, you've got Mario, you've got enough of Sonic that you could bring him in and people would know who he is. Right? You'd have to like Iron Man and Captain America it a little bit,
What
right?
company
Like,
did the Pokemon movie? I'm trying to remember. Oh, why did I just type it?
I don't know off the top of my. Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head. So yeah, you got Mario, Sonic, and Pokemon that you got some sort of background that you obviously it wouldn't be the same as like, oh, it's the Pikachu from Detective Pikachu. Like they probably wouldn't do that, but like, and like the Sonic would probably be not the Sonic from the current movies, but like you have that like there's enough characters in the Super Smash Brothers potential canon that you would have to like make the movie so that people knew who they were outside of the video game industry. Just like you kind of had to reintroduce Iron Man, Captain America into the public consciousness through their movies before an Avengers movie that heavily featured them made sense. So like it would be a ways off. Again, it's not a great idea. I don't know if they would do it.
I don't think they would. I don't think they would.
I don't think they would.
I'd say they would probably try, and then they'd be like, never mind.
They would. It would probably get workshopped.
Like maybe,
right? Like they'd be like, we should. Let's take a early development crack at it. Like
maybe
I'm sure they'll do that.
Maybe we'll have Mario and Kirby crossover first.
Yeah, but like again, like how many of these franchises can you actually make into a movie? Like that's part of it too, right? Like, can you make a Kirby movie? I don't really know. Now, here's another question that we can ask. Can they make a Mega Man movie? Finally.
They're trying.
Like, I know they've been talking about making a Mega Man movie, and I think like every time I read it, it's some guy, and it's a different person each time too. I'm not calling out anyone specifically, but there's some guy who's like, yeah, we can talk about the deep, dark, emotional core of Mega Man. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Just make it Astro Boy, for God's sakes.
just make a good Astro Boy movie, right? Like, come on. Like, we can get, like, this is society's challenge. You get your dark, gritty robot movie when you make the cheerful, fun Mega Man movie, because guess what? Dark undertones are in the Mega Man franchises called Mega Man X and Mega Man Zero. And I think those would be great movies. But you can't do them until you do the Mega Man movie good. Or a Mega Man TV show really good.
And
until you get like
it has to be a
solid...
Yeah, it has to be like a lighthearted, simple, and fun movie. It doesn't have to be like super complicated. Like that's the property that's just been going around to so many like men in suits. That's basically it. Because like, what is it at Netflix now? They're trying to do one.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm until I see an actual trailer, I've given up on caring. At this point, like my strategy is just to somehow become famous enough to be put in charge of making a Mega Man movie or TV show, or live till I'm like 90 and Mega Man's in the public domain, and I can I'll do it myself. Those are my two options, I feel like, at this point. Like, Mega Man, but I don't know, maybe Mario, the success of the Mario movie will lend credence to people saying like, hey, look, if you make a movie that is like really well adapted to the source material, people really like that. You don't need to change a whole lot to make it a good movie. Like maybe if they see enough of that.
And apparently you can
convince those men in suits to just take it at face value and to not be embarrassed that the little robot boy has weird cartoon eyes.
And apparently you don't even need a plot to be successful.
Yeah.
But
anyway, John and I will workshop a Mario movie. I think that's what we need to do. We'll write a treatment and then try to get hired. That's our new goal. Right, John? I've roped you into this.
I've had a small like idea treatment for a Final Fantasy movie for a long time.
That's another one where like, are you going to adapt a certain Final Fantasy game?
Here's the thing. Well, like the Mario,
your own original story?
No, I don't want to make an original story. I would do the first one because it's like Mario. It has such a simple, like overall, like plot. It's like save the 4 crystals. Like, okay, fine. it's like, so what can I do to make that creative? I would do like I would do like the Lego movie twist, where at the end it's revealed it's like, oh, this entire adventure you went on has been a game inside kids' minds or something like that. They've just been playing together. And that's your hook for like the rest of the franchise, where it's like each individual one is like a new game that these kids play. And then it's like if they go to Final Fantasy VII, it's like there's like a one kid that meets like new people in college and they play Final Fantasy VII or something like that. It's so on and so forth.
Okay. Here's the final. I think this is a final question to round off the discussion. Who do you think is going to see the success of the Mario movie? Someone who isn't Nintendo or Sega. And it's going to say, all right, I'm throwing my hat in the ring.
Mortal Kombat's already going strong. A new Street Fighter movie actually got greenlit.
Wasn't there a Chun-Li movie not too long ago?
It was like 2009. That's like, it's been long enough.
Okay, I knew it was more recent. I couldn't remember what the year was. I just remember it was more recent than I expected. But yeah, 2009 is still quite a while ago.
But yeah, they're probably looking at they looked at the Mario returns, like, okay, that's awesome. And then they looked at the projections of what Street Fighter 6, the game, is going to have. Like, oh, that's even more awesome. So it's like brand recognition is starting up again. So I think they're going to get like a good team together for this next Street Fighter movie, personally. Mm-hmm. They're gonna have people like, oh, I love Street Fighter. Oh, it's that. Now the question is, do they go to the tournament? Like, do they do straight to Street Fighter 2, like the last movie did, or the first movie did, or do they play it smart and just focus on Ryu, Ken, and Akuma?
Yeah.
No one knows what
I'm trying to think. Yeah. No, that's definitely good. I'm trying to think of what my answer. I mean, obviously, like Mega Man is what I hope for, but I don't know if that's actually like
I still think Mega
guess.
Man's going to be like in development hell for a little bit while longer, since there's so many people in there. That's like, I think if anything comes out of Mega Man, it'll be like the men in suits probably being like, oh, Mario made money. Let's rush this thing now.
That's what
It's not going to be, it's like, oh shit.
And I almost
that's the exact opposite of what we wanted.
I almost want them to rush out a bad Mega Man movie just so that we can restart the clock on the cycle. And then in like 10 years, get another shot at it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, if we can just get this done, then like the longer it takes, the longer we have to wait until we start the 10-year clock of when we're allowed to take another pass at it, you know? So I almost kind of want that to happen.
Silent Hill 2 is getting a direct adaptation now.
But those feel like they're more off of the back of stuff like the Last of Us TV show that we've talked about on other podcasts, where it's like taking a game series with strong narrative elements that's already kind of in a mature adult audience. The presentation is very like it's not cartoony, right?
Yeah, no, it's not. Definitely not.
Realistic it's not like hyper realistic, but it's definitely going for a realistic looking vibe, right? Like we're pushing graphics to see like how authentic we can make these graphics look, so that then when you translate it into a live action format, it isn't jarring.
Do you think
like that feels like a different branch?
Yeah, like that metal.
Like I'm thinking about like animated
movies. That's been in like development hell also.
I'm thinking about like animated movies for a PG audience.
Kirby's way too big to not get an animated movie. Way too big.
I just don't know how you do it. I don't know how you do. Kirby does not speak. And you can't have Kirby speak.
You have everyone.
I don't think it would work.
Have everyone else speak.
You can, but man, I don't know if you can. That's a challenge.
They had a show.
You can maybe make it work.
Wait, wasn't the Kirby Right Back At You? Wasn't that a big hit in America when it was on?
It was. I can't qualify whether it was a big hit. It was as popular as like Sonic X, I think.
Okay.
Like I think it was. It did what it was supposed to do. Okay. I don't think it was like a breakout hit necessarily.
Okay, so like,
I enjoyed it when it was on.
I think if they do a Kirby movie, they're gonna have like an animated Kirby movie. They're gonna have like maybe definitely less of a budget than the Mario movie was for sure. So I think that will give like the men in suits like some leeway on the creative input. It's like, oh, I know nothing about Kirby. You do whatever the hell you want. Just make us money.
Yeah. Let's see. It's too bad no video games are entering the public domain for quite some time. It's too bad nobody invented Mario in 1933 or something.
I think what Nintendo's gonna want there is like, oh, cool, let's just do a direct sequel. I don't think Nintendo themselves are gonna want to do like all their franchises now.
Yeah.
Do
you think
they'll
we'll
want
get
to stick with this and then maybe do that? So like Mario Brothers 2 is going to be an adaptation of Super Mario World, and then that they're going to bring in like Daisy and whatnot, and Wart. I don't know, some other villain than Bowser.
I feel like Bowser's going to be the villain one more time, and then the third movie.
Oh,
like the second movie will have like some sort of like Revenge of Bowser angle, and then the third movie will be like, oh, Bowser has to help because there's a new threat. Like I feel like that's the vibe.
No. I say we leave Bowser out of 2 altogether, and like have it be a different villain, and then 3.
I'm not saying it's just a good strategic decision. I'm just saying this is what I think they would do. They would bring Bowser back.
I think they would try to find a new villain personally, and then like Bowser would be like the Dr. Lecter guy. That'll be funny. Like Bowser as Hannibal Lecter, where you just get advice from him while he's in prison. And then, but like 3 though is obviously going to be Mario Galaxy. Obviously, that's definitely what
you think they completely skip over Sunshine.
Yes.
I would love Super Mario Sunshine Summer Blockbuster though. That would be such a vibe. Oh yeah, it's the middle of June. Let's go watch the Super Mario Sunshine movie, guys.
It's too obvious of a story beat to have the third movie be Super Mario Galaxy. It's super obvious as like
John.
As
I
like
know
Shadow,
what you're saying.
as like Shadow was to be like, oh, Shadow's got to be the villain in 3. It's like
let
even
me
before.
Dream of beachy vibes of the Super Mario Sunshine movie on a hot June day as the planet erupts into flames because we're 10 years in the future. Let me dream.
You know, plot-wise, if they do that, then it'll just be like cloudy and depressing for like a good portion of the movie, and it'll only see the sunshine in the very beginning and ending.
Sunshine was not cloudy and depressing. What are you talking about?
I'm saying plot-wise for being dramatic. It's like it'll start out like how amazing and relaxing this place is, and then something bad will happen, and it'll be depressing and cloudy, and then
it won't be depressing and cloudy. It'll be covered in goo. The goo is the problem.
There's also clouds over it in Mario Sunshine.
Like
Remember that?
In the main hub world, yeah, but like most of the places they go are not covered in clouds. It'd be fine. They would not. They could do it without killing the beach vibe. I believe in them. John, have you been playing any video games? Have you only been watching?
Oh my god, I have been playing a lot. Well, this weekend I'm going to play the Street Fighter 6 demo. I'm excited for that.
Fun.
What else have I played? My roommate and I replayed some Elden Ring. We started off. We named our dude Robert. Because we just love that contrast. It's like, oh, go forth, reforge the Elden Ring. Let this man with a big dramatic name help you on your guide. I am this. It's like names with like 10 syllables, and then it's like, what is your name, Great Warrior? Robert. I am Robert. What else? What else?
Keith.
What else?
Look out for Keith.
I played Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order not too long ago. Beat that. It was very fun. I platinumed it. It was actually really easy to platinum. So now I'm ready for the sequel next week. Resident Evil 4 remake. Yeah, of course. I playing the hell out of that right now. I got through the first playthrough, and I played a bit of the new Mercenaries mode. That was fun. And then I'll probably go through my second playthrough some more. I didn't realize that on professional mode it disables autosave. So I literally played for like an hour, and then I got killed, and I went back to like my last save point. I'm like, oh, damn, no. Not used to this. We're back in the GameCube days now, boys. But yeah, that's fun. I'm not sure if I'll platinum it because the platinum is like stupid. Like the requirements for that are stupidly hard. I think I'm just gonna like go through it again, get some clips, make a cool video montage out of it for the channel. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
And then I also just got going to play again. I just got GameFly because there's just so many games coming out this year I want to try, but I don't want to pay like $70 for out the gate for.
That brings me back.
Yeah.
It brings me back.
It's a great deal. It's a great
days.
deal. I'm like, I'm getting my copy of Dead Island 2 just shipped. I'm like, oh, cool. I'm going to play that. I'm going to play that for a bit and then return it. And then immediately after, I'm going to get the next.
That's not the volleyball one, is it?
Dead Island? No. But yeah, after I'm playing...
Squints suspiciously.
After I give up on Dead Island 2, I'm going to return that, and then I'll immediately get Star Wars Jedi Survivor after that. And I'll probably platinum that in another week or two. So that'll be fun. I can't wait. What have you been playing?
Neat. Not a whole lot, actually. I've been dealing with some stuff. I am in the process of moving back to the United States, and that has taken up a lot of my time, to be honest. So just like the basic stuff of like, you know, when I have a moment, I jump on Pokemon Showdown and do some random battles. I've been out of the OU for a while because they keep banning things and they keep changing things, and then they introduce a new Pokemon that goes up on the Scarlet and Violet like raids, and so then they bring in like a brand new Pokemon and the whole format changes. And so I think I'm not going to play the main format until like the DLC comes out and Pokemon Home comes out and all that and things stabilize, because I just can't keep up.
I read they had another patch come out like today or whatnot, and everyone's like, oh, they fixed something, and everyone's like, no. I'm like, God damn it. Come on, man. It's been 5 months. You can't, like, nitpick, like, little bit of fixes here and there.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know about that. I'll return to that when the DLC comes out. Yeah, I might do this. I still need to finish Link's Awakening. And then I will probably start the new Mega Man game that came out. I know you're like, what? Joseph isn't playing the new Mega Man game right away. I would like to clarify. I played a little bit of Battle Network before. It's very different than regular Mega Man. Yeah. I do like the general vibe of robots and stuff, but it's not like my, I gotta play it, right? Like, so, but I will play it. It's next on my to-do list. So don't worry. I also kind of wanted to get a sense of like how good of a port or remaster or whatever they call it it is, and like what platform might be best to get it on. So I'm giving it a little bit of space. When I'm actually physically moving to a different continent, I will probably have time to dive into stuff like that again. So don't worry, it'll come.
I didn't realize that
this podcast.
I didn't realize that collection was $60 beforehand. So I was like ready to buy it, and they're like, oh, it's 60. I'm like, what? Oh God.
I mean, it is.
It's a big.
They say it's 10. It is 6 video games. Like, it is inarguably 6.
Oh, it's a great bang for your buck. It's just like, oh man, I was
$10.
I was like, I literally just got GameFly to like
games,
save money on games, but it's like, oh God, it's like I'm definitely not gonna play it immediately. Is what I'm saying. It's like if
each of the games was like $10 on like the digital store and you bought it that way, like I wouldn't bat an eye.
Oh yeah,
like $10 for an old Game Boy Advance game.
I'm not denying that.
That's reasonable.
I'm not denying that. It's just that when I get the rest of the Mega Man like Legacy collections for like $20 each, it's like okay.
Yeah.
It's like I'll wait a bit before I get my copy.
Well, I feel like NES games, like it is different. An NES game is, I don't know, the value of that when it's so easy to get a perfect NES experience for free in the ways that one does that. Game Boy Advance is also not very hard, but it's at least slightly different. And the point, like I do kind of want to get it on Switch. I'm just sort of waiting to make sure that like the performance on Switch is okay. Because Zero was fantastic on Switch. I think the Zero ZX Legacy Collection, like if you obviously, like notwithstanding quality of the games, not that they're bad, but just like I'm talking about as a remaster, I think it's a fantastic remaster. I think it's a source port is the technical term that we throw around. I think that's one of the best ways to play those video games. I don't know if that's going to be the case with this. Kind of want to let people have their hands on it for a little bit before making that decision. Also because it doesn't have cross-net play, which I feel like it's like, man, if you wanted to have like the online battles, if you could have just sorted out cross-net play, like I think that would have.
Yeah, that's
if you're going to divide your community, if you're going to divide your communities like that, then it just kind of affects the whole vibe. I don't know. I'm not a big fan
Yeah,
of that.
because
So
like we were
we'll see.
we were talking about in the Discord. It's like, oh, James got it already on PC. I'm like, oh, damn. And then like I'm
And
getting
yeah, James got on
you want it on
yeah,
Switch. I'm getting it on PS4 because that's just where I happen to have
right,
all my other Mega Man games.
right. So we'll see. I think it's interesting. I'll certainly talk about it more on a podcast in the future. Don't worry. But yeah, that's I think pretty much it. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on before we wrap up, John?
No, I think that's pretty much it.
All right. Well, thank you for listening to this episode of the Game Cola podcast. If you like what you heard, be sure to check us out on our actual internet website, GameCola.net, our YouTube channel, GCDotNet, the letter G, the letter C, the word dot, the word net, or at Game Cola on YouTube or on Twitter, as long as that has not completely fallen apart by the time you've listened to this podcast. Not a guarantee. All the check marks died today, or have been in the process of dying, so who knows? Who knows if we're even Game Cola on Twitter? We are Game Cola on Twitter. Don't worry.
I'm going to change the Twitter.
Join the
I'm going to change the Game Cola Twitter to Men in Suits.
You can join the Discord, chat with us on Discord. It's always fun. You can find the link in like the Twitter bio and on the Game Cola website. I do want to give you a call to action. Go to the Game Cola YouTube channel. Watch the new Hacks and Slash animatic that I made. I worked very hard on it, and I want people to look at it.
It's very funny.
That is selfish of me.
It's great.
It's
you have
so it's like 2 minutes. Share it with your friends.
You made something funny. It's good to be selfish about something you're proud of.
It's a bite-sized piece of Game Cola that you can share with your friends, because that's how we get more people to watch Game Cola stuff. It is up to you, because I've told everybody I know about the podcast already. I've run out of people to tell. So thanks if you watch it, if you share it. Thanks. If you listen to this podcast, you've made it to the end of this podcast. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, we are on all podcast feeds. Rate us highly on the podcast app that whatever you listen to it, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, like, comment, subscribe. I don't know. Are there any other call to actions I can inundate the end of this podcast with? I don't know. Yeah.
Call of Duty movie. It's happening.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Game Cola podcast. Have a wonderful day, whatever time it is. You are listening to this podcast, and we will see you next month. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Woohoo!